Michael Jackson was dangerous, but not for the reasons that you may think. He was a threat to the system that is all coming to light right now, and all of the things that are going on in the world right now between the Epstein files and learning that everything is run by a certain country's people and PDFs, if you don't know what that is. Like, I have to be very careful about what I say, but we are now learning the truth that a lot of us have known for a very long time, is that Michael was not the problem. Michael had too much power and too much reach, so they had to dismantle him, which is funny enough because he became too dangerous to control, and they realized they lost control of him with his album named Dangerous, the one released in 1999, where his entire purpose of that entire album was shining light on subjects that needed more attention. You don't believe me? Why You Want to Trip on Me talks about how we have grown people that can't read while we're worried about all the other problems in the world. Homelessness, Heal the World, Black or White, Will You Be There, Keep the Faith, Gone Too Soon, Dangerous. All of these things either subtly or straight up talk about how we shouldn't be divided, we should stop destroying the world, we should heal the world. Talks about his shortcomings in Will You Be There, but his return to faith and the right things and trying to strive to be better, all coming after one of the last songs on his Bad album talking about be the change that you want to see in the world. There was a shift at the end of Bad into Dangerous where he wanted to use his platform for good, and right after this album was released, he made one crucial decision that started the downfall of everything, all the allegations and everything. And we can jump right into this. This is a long video essay, but if you're down for the ride, I absolutely am so excited to share it with you. Michael Jackson somewhat openly supported Palestine after his 1993 tour of the Middle East. He once wrote a song called Palestine Don't Cry, which was found in a journal that surfaced at an auction in 2010. It only stayed as a poem because that song was never released on his 1995 album as it was planned because Sony refused. Surprisingly, that was not his first stance on the subject. On Heal the World from his 1991 album, he featured the voice of Palestinian children. He was an artist that truly cared about the well-being of the world, even going so far to say, "What about the Holy Land torn apart by Creed?" in his Earth song, which was released on that same album in 1991. It is very interesting that all of the allegations that have been completely proven false started to surface in late 1993, literally 2 months after his tour of the Middle East, which coincidentally coincided with when he started to be a little bit more verbal behind the scenes about his stance on the state of the Middle East and what he had seen. Which is very interesting because the only people that would know about this song and his stance pre-release would have been his record label, being Sony. If we dig a little deeper, all of the people that gave him strife between 1993 and his death were Zionists. Starting with the people at the top of Sony, who all either took Zionist funding or was Zionist, especially Tommy Mottola. And we all know about his spiral on trying to take on Tommy and saying that Sony kills and all of the stuff. It has a little bit more validity to it now that we understand why. Not even touching on the fact that Tommy was mentioned in the Epstein files over 600 times. That also, the Epstein files have infinite links to Zionism, which I will touch on later, but that's besides the point. I honestly think all of this is shocking because of how relevant it is today, with him standing with Palestine and there being a literal genocide against them as we speak about the group that was siding against him. I feel like this may be a shock to a lot of you listening, but we are just scratching the surface because the same people that were trying to manipulate and control Michael from Sony led an equal uproar from the media, which coincidentally has so many ties or is completely owned by the same group. Michael, unfortunately, did not know he was putting a big target on his back by taking stances on those two specific topics, being Palestine and against Tommy's control at Sony. Although they were the right choices, they cost him his life. All I need from you, if you were going to commit to viewing this, is to have an open mind and truly take in what I have to say, because I put a lot of time on researching and writing this essay. I will firmly state that I do not trust anything mainstream and know that there is always more than meets the eye. Now, with that out of the way, let's dive deeper. Michael Jackson was dangerous, but not in the way you might think. He was a threat to Israel's support by taking a stance with Palestine. He threatened the control system that Sony Records had because he owned half of it and made it clear that they could not control him. And the last and most crucial was that he was unifying and healing the world by pouring love into an entire new generation, which was a threat to indoctrination and division worldwide. You think you know the story of Michael Jackson. He's the king of pop. He was everywhere at one time. He reached heights that only people dream of. But his downfall was just as televised, if not more than his rise. What you don't realize is the story is a lot more nuanced than it appears, and a lot of stuff happened behind the scenes. The mainstream story hides the darker sides and tries to paint him in a certain light. In reality, with the Epstein files just releasing, you see that the powerful people that do the things that they accused him of usually never come out or never face backlash, because the people in power just pay their way out of everything. In reality, he was in the middle of trying to take down corruption and truly change the world. So they used a formulated situation as a weapon against him. They wanted this to come out, and it makes sense once you know the situation he was in and how weird it looks from an outsider's perspective. What I will aim to do is analyze the information considering all angles, including the psychological aspects of his life, so we can truly understand the mind of Michael. The entire time, he was a person with incredible aspirations, just trying to change the world with his poetic, thoughtful writing mixed with his strong bass of dance that made his themes more palatable to a larger audience. No matter how imperfect he was unifying the entire world through his songs, and that was seen as too powerful. Even though his name was being slandered, his integrity in jeopardy, and continually being attacked from all angles, he continued to preach love and unity over division. The only problem with that is the damage was already done. Once he had finally won, cleared his name, and persevered with all the people trying to leech from his success, he was preparing for a comeback tour to recoup all of the financial struggles he had faced from over a decade, but unfortunately, he was killed. His entire situation is honestly extremely tragic and one led on deception, confusion, and ulterior motives. But the real story is shocking. He tried to save us and wanted nothing but love and unity the entire time. Now, to fully understand the mind of Michael, we have to go back to the beginning. His childhood, or really a lack of childhood. Now, I'm going to speedrun this section. I have something written out in the essay to really dive deep into this topic, but I really just need to set the stage for what is to come and why he is the way that he is. He was one of 9 kids, being the youngest. His parents worked hard to provide for him. His father worked at a steel mill. His mother worked at a department store. They didn't have a lot of money. They were in poverty. The dad, what used to be in a band called the Falcons, it didn't amount to much, and he put his guitar away in the closet. But there was a love of music that was held through the entire family, because band practices were held in their living room when he was in that band. But he had to retire it. It wasn't going anywhere, and he had to lock in for his kids. I'm sure being an adult, not amounting to the dreams that you dreamt, can build inside of you, along with a really hard job and 9 kids in poverty. You're going to be kind of an angry person, especially if you don't deal with your own trauma from the previous generation and you've been passed down all this stuff. So keep that in mind. So once the family band was born, called the Jacksons, being the precursor to the Jackson 5, Michael Jackson joined at 5 years old and was eventually moved to co-lead sing at 6 years old. And that is a whole lot of pressure when your dad is the person that spent all of his extra money on band equipment, puts a whole lot of pressure on this has to be his way out of his terrible situation, working really hard days, all day, every day. He wants a way out. And genuinely, just to remind you, all of this came from a passion of music, but really started to unravel when the pressure of escaping the system that they were, or the situation that they were in, was all the pressure weighted on these kids, and especially Michael being co-lead sing at 6 years old. His father is passing down the physical structure of parenting from his dad and his undealt with stuff and his life stuff onto his kids. And when that is supposed to be in a topic that is fun and enjoyable by the family, but this immense amount of pressure is put on them, it doesn't make it fun anymore. It really kills the fun, and especially when you consider that they didn't have a life like normal kids. Because once this started, they couldn't go play outside with other kids. They couldn't have a worry-free life. It was like work. It was school and then work and then sleep and then school and then work and then sleep. They had no free time. It was go to school, come home, practice till you go to sleep, and repeat. And Michael had a yearning to just have the freedom that other kids did. But it was a bit of a blessing, because when you have ornate gifts and you have consistent practice, you become a prodigy, especially when you are years and years ahead of everyone else in your field. On top of the immense pressure that you had to succeed to carry your family out of poverty, it changes everything, especially the psyche of your brain. You grow up really fast and you are robbed of that innocence. But it wasn't all bad, because singing and dancing and doing all the stuff for Michael was as effortless as breathing. He loved to do it, but he described it as work in his early years, because all he wanted to do was have the freedom to do as he wished, to have the freedom of a normal kid. And when you're robbed of that innocence that young, combined with the pressure of adulthood at 6 years old, it's going to mess you up for a very long time. And it's going to have lingering effects throughout your entire life. And that's really all I have to say on his early life. And I'm going to brush past his success as well. We really need to get the allegations and his impact and what he was trying to do, along with how it all connects to one group. So just keep following me, because it'll be worth it. Michael absolutely loved his success while also hating it. Having a lack of childhood robbed him of a lot of things, but gave him so much freedom to do as he wished. But he was lonely. He talks about it in his biography, that he just wanted to have a friend that didn't know who he was as the artist and just wanted to meet someone authentically. If you are starved of real connection, it can affect how you show up as a person in the world and even impact your drive to continue your craft as an artist. But Michael pushed on, because at the end of the day, he was a competitive workaholic that loved his craft. His music slowly evolved the more successful he got, from catchy, easy to listen to dance songs, personal songs he wrote about his own experiences, to evolving to a deeper vision for change, trying to evolve as a person and trying to shine light on situations that needed more attention. He wouldn't stop at his impact in music either. Michael won multiple Guinness Book of World Record awards from his philanthropic efforts, estimating around $500 million donated to charities across his entire career. Even donating his payout he got from a lawsuit he won with the Pepsi commercial incident that left him with many permanent burns, but he decided to donate it all. By this point in his career, it was very clear that Michael wanted to make as large of an impact as he could in any and all ways. So someone at his heights in all regards, how did someone fall so far? I know I touched on it at the start, but everything about the sets of allegations are truly fishy, to say the least. The reach of Michael was unlimited with his cult-like following that he built brick by brick. But when you have so much power at the tip of your fingers and you're not staying in the box that was designed for you by those above you, it is not going to turn out well. It all started in late 1993 when the first set of PDF file accusations came out against him. Father of the Chandler family spoke on the behalf of his son, who was supposedly the victim in the situation, which is understandable from the outside looking in till you look back on it now. The father did an interview with the press to make the situation public, and I would like to point out how fishy the entire situation was, being that both the accuser and the media broadcasting this were Zionists. It is an understatement to try and describe how much the media controlled perception of the people from this time period. From my perspective now, I personally do not trust anything coming from a mainstream news source because of how much political bias there is in everything that either deems to manipulate your perception of something to support division, to discredit people that could damage their control or just grab your attention to distract you. It was all a calculated plan being orchestrated from behind the scenes, because it is now known that the main piece that tanked his reputation were the Chandler family, his sister, and the media. In the Chandler family situation, the only concrete information that they had was acquired under heavy anesthesia, which is linked to creating false memories and was not publicly known till years later. Something else that can be mentioned here is that years after this whole situation, the entire Chandler family fell apart, with the son wanting nothing to do with either of his parents, and even accused his dad of threatening to smash him with a doorbell. The lawsuit still did not have any weight to it till Jackson's own sister, LaToya, sided against him in the situation, which was shocking at the time, but later admitted her husband was abusing her to side against him, which, who would have guessed it, the abusive husband was also Zionist. Next is where the inconsistencies start to pop up. Children that initially said nothing sexual happened had never ever gone on, later switched sides with many inconsistencies in their stories under oath. Later, Michael opted to settle in the lawsuit to avoid a lengthy trial and stop the negative PR, which Michael would later say he regretted, as it only opened the floodgates of people trying to get theirs going forward. The civil case was done, but the criminal case continued until it fizzled out 1 year later because there wasn't any evidence. It was found that later, after the payout from this suit, the Chandler father closed his dental practice, which shows that he was only looking for an easy ticket to a worry-free life, which did not pan out necessarily because his son wanted nothing to do with him, and shortly after Michael's passing in 2009, the father ended up himself, which paints a different picture in my opinion. After all the legal problems, Michael had his name cleared temporarily, but he had lost his Pepsi sponsorship and didn't have quite as much reach as he once did in terms of impact on the culture, because his reputation had been damaged. Whether the allegations were true or not, people had already made their minds up, or the media had been slandering him for years. So what was Michael's solution to that? Enter Martin Bashir, who was given 24/7 unfiltered access to Michael's life to reclaim some of his reputation. But that was a big mistake. If we were to look at it from the perspective that I built earlier, with a man with no childhood and nurtured his inner child, he loved elementary things and was willing to heal the world in any and every way that he could. There was such a drastic shift in his songs trying to help the kids in 1991 and even in 1995, shining light on all the missing children. And even his Super Bowl halftime show in 1993 dedicated to healing and loving children in the most innocent and endearing way. Michael was trying to use his platform for good because he wanted to be the change he wanted to see in the world. This entire situation covered his relationship he had with young children and sometimes sharing bedrooms with them, either in the same bed or Michael on the floor. This gave him such great joy to make a positive impact on the children in his life and trying to heal the next generation during their formative years. Bashir and many others saw something entirely different because of the past accusations, years of media spreading fake rumors, and just not enough information on the subject. Michael did look strange from the outside looking in, but if you actually looked at it from Michael's body of work, the message he tried to spread the entire time, you would have come to a different conclusion. Nevertheless, everything was fine because the questions that were asked were getting shut down by the Arvizo son, who denied any accusations against Michael, until the Arvizo family was asked to leave Neverland Ranch because consistent destructive tendencies were shown from the children, and that is when it all changed. The Arvizo family started throwing accusations in Michael's direction within months of leaving, changing their stories from universally praising him to saying he was touching their son. There was never any concrete evidence against Michael Jackson, even after raiding his home and taking a whole lot of personal electronics. There was no proof and no witness accounts besides the family. What was outed during this trial, though, was that the Arvizo family were pretty much grifters that had pulled off a lawsuit payout scam before this. None of the family stories could line up, and a whole bunch of conflicting accounts were their only evidence. Another thing to truly consider in this situation is that Bashir had 24/7 access to his life for 3 years and nothing happened. But to believe this accusation, it would have had to have been the few months following the documentary and in the middle of multiple investigations. None of it lined up at all, and Michael was later acquitted of all the charges. The more that we learn about the perspective that Neverland was a safe place and did nothing but bring good energy into children's lives, and this is why this last set of accusations has no validity in my opinion. In 2019, a decade after his death, HBO would release a documentary titled Leaving Neverland. In my opinion, there is not a whole lot of validity to this documentary for reasons I stated before, but also there is not a whole lot of concrete evidence or opposing sides. Documentaries control the entire narrative and evidence start to finish, not to mention the suspicious timing of the release and who the victims got interviewed by afterwards. This documentary was released in the height of the Me Too movement, which added validity at the time, but at the same time, the victims interviewed with Oprah to really bask in their 2 minutes of fame. Nothing that comes onto Oprah's platform can be trusted, in my opinion. It would be the same as trusting something that was on Ellen's platform. That may be a controversial statement, but she is a billionaire. They're both billionaires. Like all billionaires, she is most likely evil. They are both evil because there are no ethical billionaires. At bare minimum, she is a controlled opposition. One of the victims was one of Michael's biggest defenders and even testified under oath in his previous trials defending Michael. Things change, I guess, when you fall on hard times financially, so you take the easy route once your so-called friend is dead and you file lawsuits against him 5 years after his death. When that did not work, a documentary 5 years after that. None of that has concrete evidence, in my opinion, and continues on the conflicting accounts narrative that followed Michael on each trial he went through. Because honestly, anyone can be bought with enough money. Now that we've covered all that, I need to quickly explain what Zionism is for those that you don't know, because it ties to everything that I've talked about in this video and goes even further. So Zionism is the loyalty to the state of Israel, which is the government of Israel and not the land or the people. They think that they are owed the land of surrounding countries in the Middle East. They think that they should have complete control over the Middle East. They want Palestine because it is technically the Holy Land. They want to do weird religious things with it. They want to carve out a giant channel so they don't have to pay Palestine for shipping taxes and all these things. They want to have complete control financially and physically over the entire Middle East. They pose as a certain religion, but they are not that. It is a blanket way for them to get away from criticism, and they can just call you a certain name, and everyone forgets that, and then looks at you like they're the bad guy. They are not that group. They are actually the opposite of that group and are very corrupt and evil. They have infiltrated almost every avenue of this country over decades by either paying their way into lobbying or by sitting in the positions themselves, especially our government, especially our media being news platforms and movies, and especially money. They have infiltrated this country to use us as a bidding war to start other things, to use us and all of our resources to their best benefit. And that is the only reason why they're here, but to manipulate, to control, and to use us for the resources that we have. And we can continue to tie that group of people with the state of Israel, with Jeffrey Epstein and the files being a Mossad agent, indirectly a Mossad agent. We can tie Mossad to the CIA and only being formed about 2 years apart after World War II, after the state of Israel got their land. So all of this ties back together to World War II. Israel gets their land after all of World War II happens. Then within the same 2 or 3 years, Mossad gets formed, the CIA gets formed. They have ties together indirectly. Supposedly they don't, but the intelligence agencies have ties to each other. A former Mossad agent, being Ghislaine Maxwell's father, Robert Maxwell, is the person that has created all of our textbooks for all of our indoctrination. Jeffrey Epstein switched hands with the daughter of him and is supposedly not a Mossad agent, but he was able to walk out scot-free in so many situations. It was not targeted in so many avenues. It's definitely part of an intelligence agency, at least. So to tie all of those things together with Michael Jackson, because Michael Jackson was publicly trying to speak out about what's going on in the Middle East, saying Palestine don't cry, trying to talk about the start of what the genocide is now in those countries, and he was trying to protect and heal the kids, which Jeffrey Epstein was doing the opposite of that. So if you take both of those regards on top of healing worldwide and getting rid of division, on top of his music catalog, those things got him killed. I think the music catalog was definitely the least bit of all of them. He was convinced it was for his music catalog, and that was the easy cop-out. But if you look at those two big things between that group and that person, he was target number one, and that's why they got rid of him, because of those connections. Now that we've covered his early life, his success, his accusations, and really covering it from this perspective of this time and with all the things coming out now, I really want to start on his death and his song lyric analysis, because since this is my first video essay, I was not really sure how to sprinkle in the lyrics in the song, and I don't really know if I'm going to really dive deep into his song lyrics, but I will vaguely touch on this. But starting on his death, in researching this video, I stumbled upon a weird piece of information surrounding Michael's death. The only person that the doctor that accidentally killed Michael called before the police was P. Diddy's bodyguard. Fahim Muhammad was called before anyone else to get help because Michael was not breathing. Mind you, this is the same person that was on record during multiple investigations of P. Diddy was found that Fahim Muhammad was the person to call to falsify evidence, to get rid of evidence, or to get rid of a body entirely. Now, taking that into consideration for what it is, and all the things that I've talked about on how he was dangerous in multiple accords, I'm going to jump into his song lyric analysis to really tie this in full circle with what he was really doing. For the most part, Michael was a bit subtle or playful with some of his themes in his later albums, where the themes were not immediately apparent. If we start by looking at his song Unbreakable from his 2001 album Invincible, we get a vibe that was built into that song by touching his current themes on how he felt about his life. Now I'm just wondering why you think that you can get to me with anything. Seems like you'd know by now when and how I get down, and with all that I've been through, I'm still around. Don't you ever make no mistake. Baby, I've got what it takes, and there's no way you'll ever get to me. Why you can't see that you'll never ever hurt me, 'cause I won't let it be. See, I'm too much for you, baby. You can't believe it. You can't conceive it. And now you can't touch me, 'cause I'm untouchable. And I know you hate it, and I know you can't take it. You'll never break me, 'cause I'm unbreakable. Pair that with his final song from that same album, this being the last song that he ever released, called Threatened, which in full context, he had beat every allegation thrown against him, as well as get out from under, away from every person that was trying to throw dirt on his name or exploit him for something. In his mind, if my theory is correct, he knew he was being targeted by certain people or a certain group of people. He is not being subtle with the lyrics here, talking about how he is a monster, a nightmare that should not be underestimated. The lyrics read, "The unknown monster is about to embark from a far corner out of the dark. A nightmare, that's the case. Never Neverland, that's the place. The particular monster can read minds, be in two places at the same time. This is Judgment Night, execution, slaughter. The devil, ghosts, this monster is torture. You can be sure of one thing, that's fate. A human presence that you feel is strange. A monster that you can see disappear. A monster, the worst thing to fear." Followed by, "You should be watching me. You should feel threatened." In my interpretation of that, he was telling the people that targeted him that they literally created a monster that they should fear because it was coming for them, which is tragic because Michael was planning a comeback tour. You can tell he was coming back with a vengeance, so they took him out because they could not control him, which he actually touches on in his History album in this song called This Time Around by saying, somebody's out to use me, they really want to use me, and they falsely accuse me this time around. They'll take it like spit because you really can't control me. Now that I have that covered, there are a few more songs that hammer home my point. With this final point, I'm going to divide the types of songs into 3 different categories that really all touch on the subjects and really hammer home my point that he was about what he really was trying to do, and he put it in all of his song lyrics, that he really was trying to make a change and really wanted to be that change, being between healing and unity, the stuff you needed attention on, and his perspective. Come together. Especially in that song, he really got caught up in the fact that his reputation was damaged because of all of the media slander, but Come Together seemed egotistical at the time, but Come Together, he wanted to be the reason why there was a revolution. He wanted to be the reason why people saw the evil, and he kind of is, but he was way ahead of his time. It didn't come for another 30 years, and that's really sad to see that he never got to see it. But the last point being his perspective in privacy, being he wasn't treated as a person, tabloid junkie, being that all that they wanted was your clicks, and all they did was lie on him and humiliate him for no reason. And he really goes deep in that song. Like, he has so many songs that are, like, most people think of Michael Jackson being pre-Dangerous era, or part of Dangerous era being 1991 and on, or before 1991 and before, like with Bad. And see, it's really sad because he really had a bunch of stuff trying to change the world. Most people, when they think of Michael Jackson, they think of Off the Wall, Thriller, and Bad albums, but at the cusp of the end of Bad, going into Dangerous and History, and a little less on Invincible, but still on Invincible, he really had themes that he was trying to target. And even on Escape, that he never released, he even, till after his death, he talks about literally escaping the system that was suppressing you. Do you know where the children are? Slave to the rhythm. Like, there are so many songs where he tried to call attention to certain things, but we were so blind to it at the time, and we weren't ready for it. He was so ahead of his time, and he had such an impact on so many people, and is the reason why my next tattoo is going to be Michael Jackson based. It's going to be, I'm starting, and then with a man looking in the mirror. Like, I have been a person that has targeted growth and trying to be the change that I want to see in the world. And doing a lot of this research, I've learned that Michael Jackson in a lot of ways is the role model that I really needed, and I'm really striving to be like. Now, I didn't have my childhood robbed from me as much as he did, but I did in a way. I am trying to come around in my maturity to love the youth, but I believe we have a parenting problem. So there's it goes back and forth, but at the end of the day, I really do want to be the change that I want to see in the world, because if everyone just decides that the world is the way that it is and decides that we can't do anything, nothing will ever change. So at the end of the day, what you should learn from this is that Michael really was the person he was saying he was, and tried to spread in his lyrics and his songs, and really tried to use his platform for good, which most people don't anymore. All they care about is selling out and keeping their mouth shut so they keep their status, at least to the people that control everything. But he was so against that and was slandered and beat down until the very end. You can see at the end of his lawsuits that he was broken, but he was coming back with a vengeance. But you can see pre-Michael lawsuits and after Michael lawsuits, he was kind of spiteful, but not in the same way. disappointed in a lot of ways, and he was addiction stricken from that he had to start taking pain pills from his surgery that he had from the PepsiCo commercial mishap, and had to have plastic surgery, donated all of the winnings from that lawsuit to charity. But then when all of the allegations started to come out, he was so stressed out and continued to take pain pills to cope with his stress. Like, the lawsuits destroyed him. The people saying all the things and constantly slandering him because he was a person that cared so much. It hurt him deeply and destroyed him in a lot of ways. And it's so sad to see. Like, if you watch the interviews, people just saw him as a monster, but in reality, he was such a good person that wanted nothing but good and change in the world. And it's really sad to look back on. But I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you understand the full message and context of everything, and subscribe if you enjoyed.